What does Mirow, whalebone, trolls, and royal weddings have in common? I think you're about to find out. Cheerio, everyone. This is Movieman, fellow cinephile, popcorn addict, and emerging film critic, coming to you with reliable recaps, reviews, and reactions. And today, I'm coming to you all with my newest recap series. That is none other than Queen Charlotte, a Bridgerton story. The series is created and written by none other than Shonda Rhimes. She's best known for her work on the popular series Grey's Anatomy, Private Practice, Scandal, and How to Get Away with Murder. An executive producer of the original Bridgerton series. And we are officially making our foray into this series with Season 1, Episode 1, Queen to Be. This episode is directed by Tom Verica, who has previously directed multiple episodes of the Bridgerton series. He is an American actor, director, and producer, best known for his role as Sam Keating in the ABC drama How to Get Away with Murder. He's previously directed for shows like Grey's Anatomy, Private Practice, Scandal, The Umbrella Academy, and Inventing Anna, among many others. And now, let us commence. So we officially open up this episode with a very timely disclaimer regarding the story that's about to be told. The fact that it is not a history lesson, but fiction inspired by fact, and that all liberties taken by the author are quite intentional. It's not unlike the series The Great on Hulu, which is actually a satirical take on the rise of Catherine the Great. We officially set our scene in Mirow, which is located in northern Germany, and the year is 1761. We see a very young Charlotte as her brother makes a contractual agreement regarding her future. And soon enough, she's headed to a foreign land. We then get our opening title sequence, and if you have been watching any of my past recap series, then you know I love a good opening title sequence. And this series is no different. I really love the use of animation and how minimalistic it was as far as not seeing, facial features or anything like that, but just showing all these different transitions as she moves throughout the palace, as she gets adjusted, as she, struggles, as like we just see her in all these different places and just her experience as queen and, coming into her own. And I thought that was such a perfect summation of the story that's going to be told here. I really enjoyed the theme as well. But what I really loved was that very clever detail of the young Queen Charlotte looking through the carriage window. Then when she closes the curtain, you see this tall hair, which is basically symbolizing her future self. I was like, yes, I absolutely loved it. We then jump back to Charlotte and her brother Adolphus, who are currently traveling to England, where Charlotte will be marrying none other than, you guessed it, the King of England. Is she happy about it? No. Can she do anything about it? Absolutely not. Well, she does briefly consider just impaling herself on her corset and undergarments, which are made of sharp whalebone and simply bleeding to death. It's an extreme option, but it's an option nonetheless. Speaking of her ensemble, the first thing that came to mind, and I don't know if it was intentional, but I immediately thought of that scene from Sofia Coppola's 2006 film Marie Antoinette. It's the scene where Marie Antoinette officially enters France to become the Dauphine. And the whole look, the headpiece, the blue color, and all of that, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely seeing a parallel there. So I'm really wondering if that was the inspiration. But if not, that's still what came to mind. Ultimately, her brother makes it very clear that aligning with the British Empire is in their best interest, as they are but a very small German province. This is despite the fact that no one who looks like the two of them has ever married anyone that looks like anyone from there. Besides, making an enemy of said empire could have dire consequences. In the end, Adolphus reassures Charlotte that there are far worse things than marrying the King of England. And my immediate thought was, tell that to Catherine of Aragon, Anne Boleyn, Jane Seymour, and Catherine Howard. Things didn't exactly turn out great for any of them when they married King Henry VIII. We then jump over to the present day, which in this case is 1815. A doctor has arrived, and as always, the Queen is assuming that the King is finally dead. And as always, he is still in good health. We then hear Lady Whistledown announcing the death of the Princess Royal, aka the granddaughter of King George III and Queen Charlotte, who has died in childbirth along with her baby.
Sorrows, prayers.
Sadly, the monarchy now faces a very uncertain future. After all, Queen Charlotte has 13 children, and not one of them, not one, has a legitimate heir to the throne. Emphasis on legitimate. We see Queen Charlotte making her way through a palace hallway, glimpsing the various paintings marking the many years of her and the king's reign and family life together. We then transition back to young Charlotte as she's observed by Princess Augusta, aka the Princess Dowager, the de facto head of the monarchy, and King George's very involved mother. Now, many of you, of course, will recognize the actress portraying Princess Augusta. That is none other than Michelle Fairley, who many will know as Catelyn Stark from Game of Thrones. I am also familiar with her because of her role as Margaret Beaufort in The White Princess. So she is no stranger to playing characters that are intense and domineering. And this character doesn't seem to be straying too far from that. She is currently observing Charlotte's skin, teeth, hips, and propensity for childbearing, all of which made for some very questionable optics, which were not lost upon me. She is also told that the wedding gown she has brought from Paris will simply not do. Instead, they have had one made here in England that reflects the simplicity of their culture. In other words, basic. It's here we also see the introduction of Brimsley, who y'all know as the Queen's future right-hand man and secretary. As of this moment, however, Charlotte finds him to be a very odd accompaniment, especially considering that he must stay 5 paces behind her at all times. It also does not help her annoyance when she requests specific information about the king and is told basic facts with zero insight. Speaking of further insight, Princess Augusta and her crew have now taken issue with Charlotte's skin tone. What a shocker. The irony to me is that they make a show of saying she's very brown, although she clearly isn't. But, of course, anything in stark contrast to them means very, very dark. Yeah, it's so hard to wrap my mind around. Everyone is currently second-guessing this arrangement until Princess Augusta intervenes and states that there's only a problem if the palace states that there's a problem. Also, to make the king's choice more intentional, they will also expand the guest list to add to Charlotte's court, aka people who don't look like us. Yes, the wedding might be in 6 hours, but who's gonna turn down a royal wedding invitation? We then witness what is a rather unfortunate introduction to what is one of my favorite characters on the Bridgerton series, and will likely be my favorite character on this series. That is none other than Agatha Danbury, also known to us as Lady Danbury. Unfortunately, we must bear witness to her performing her marital duty with her husband, which is obviously a one-sided encounter. I am not going to lie. I didn't have high expectations as far as what her husband was going to look like. But when that man flopped down on that pillow and proceeded to remove his teeth, my stomach lurched. I was like, hold up. Like,
Okay, I think I speak for everyone when I say, ew.
why, oh why, my poor Lady Danbury. Thankfully, however, happy news has arrived in the form of a royal wedding invitation. As a bonus, she'll also be attending the new Queen-to-be as part of her court. Speaking of the new Queen-to-be, she is now left to wonder if her husband is some hideous troll or wildebeest, as no one, and I do mean no one, will offer her any information about him. So, Charlotte then makes an escape plan by excusing herself to the chamber pot. This causes everyone to clear the room, which frees her to make her way outside. But not before she is briefly glimpsed by the new Lady Danbury. Oh, did I say the new Lady Danbury? Yes, apparently Princess Augusta has now made a show of support by making Agatha and her husband the new Lord and Lady Danbury. Now, this was surprising to me because I had assumed in some way that she had always been Lady Danbury and her husband had always been Lord Danbury, and, you know, just her marriage, her background, I just figured that was already established. But no, we are seeing that is not the case. This is, in fact, the beginning of the Danbury name. Brimsley is scrambling now that he realizes the new Queen-to-be is now missing. But we also see a young gentleman in the room who overhears this news. We then see Charlotte attempting to scale a garden wall and escape the impending wedding. The gentleman from earlier suddenly appears and is very curious as to what she's doing. She brushes him off at first, then proceeds to explain. But either way, he has no intentions to assist her with this task. Why, you ask? Because helping his future bride escape from their wedding together would be counterproductive, to say the least. Yes, it is none other than King George himself, or as he himself states, just George. Now, what's funny is that I was already familiar with this scene because Netflix did their Tadam event where they preview all their upcoming shows, movies, and just all their upcoming projects. And for the Queen Charlotte series, they actually showed this little snippet of the scene where Charlotte's trying to get over the wall. She runs into George, and we realize, you know, oh, they're about to be married. And just from that scene, like, I was kind of hyped. I was like, oh, like, this is not what I was expecting. I mean, I didn't really have any expectations, but just for us to realize that she's standing in front of her future husband, I was like, okay, I gotta see, like, what's the context here? So actually seeing it play out within the context of the show and we see what's going on, I actually thought that was pretty cool. So, yeah. George stares at her for a moment and tells her that she is incomparable. Mind you, in the future, during the social season, the Queen usually does declare one eligible young lady of the ton to be the season's incomparable. So, yeah, I'm kind of guessing that this might be the origin of that. The only problem left is that they know nothing about each other. So George decides to do her a solid and then fill her in with all the information that no one else was willing to offer her. We hear about the circumstances of his premature birth, his favorite food, which is mutton, and least favorite food, which is fish, how he likes books, good conversation, science, and plenty more. But most importantly, he wants Charlotte to know that he is neither a troll nor a beast, but just George. Despite the awkwardness of the obvious separate but equal seating arrangement, the wedding commences and thankfully goes off without a hitch. And the same for the reception afterwards, which features some impressive court dancing. As everything closes out, Lady Danbury introduces herself to Charlotte, but also warns her to be careful and tells her that she will come to her aid whenever she's needed. In the meantime, George has a little surprise for Charlotte. This little surprise turns out to be a massive, sprawling palace of her own, which they arrive to as a quartet version of Halo by Beyonce plays in the background. For those of you who are interested, the actual name of this location is Blenheim Palace. And it has made 71, yes, 71 appearances in film and television, which is more than any other English country house. Some of the films shot there include Spectre, Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, Cinderella, Entrapment, A Little Chaos, The Libertine, The Young Victoria, and the BFG, among several others. St. James Palace is their actual home, but Charlotte will reside here in Buckingham House, while George will stay in Kew. Things suddenly come to a head when Charlotte pushes back against this, insisting that they spend their first wedding night together. But this sends George into a bit of a tailspin, and he has no problem quickly reminding Charlotte that he is her king and that she is simply there to obey. Yikes. Charlotte is quite confused, as she thought he was just George. But now understanding the circumstances of their new life together, she complies obediently. Then, jumping forward to 1815, we see Queen Charlotte addressing all 13 of her children. She admonishes her sons for being reckless whores with tons of illegitimate children, and her daughters for being pretty much virgins and spinsters. When I tell you I was screaming during this entire exchange, look, whoever writes the dialogue, well, in this case, Shonda Rhimes, but oh my gosh, the writing for the queen is always on point. Like, it never disappoints. Chef's kiss. After reading all of them their rights, she then reminds her children that she and their father had no problem making 15, count them, 15 legitimate children by themselves with no help. And assuredly, between all 13 of them, they can come up with at least one. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for young Charlotte, who is currently contemplating her future on her wedding night, alone. Maybe she should have jumped the wall after all. And that closes out episode 1, Queen to Be. Man, I am telling you, I guess I just didn't realize how much I missed this world, this universe, so to speak. Because, I've always enjoyed Bridgerton. I've enjoyed doing my recap series and all that, even though I got a little delayed on season 2. But when this was announced, I was totally in. Queen Charlotte has always been such an entertaining figure. And I'm always here for historical stories that involve the monarchy, that involve royalty, kings, queens, the nobility, like all of that. I always find that to be something really intriguing, and I love a good prequel. I love a backstory. I love seeing how someone came to be. And not only is this show showing the origins and the progression and growth of Queen Charlotte, of King George, but then we're also getting Lady Danbury, and from what I've heard, also Violet Bridgerton as a young girl. So it's going to be really interesting seeing this new society being established because we're seeing it as is. We saw it referenced in the first season, but now we're seeing it play out. And I think just that in itself is interesting. I didn't think this show would really take the opportunity to dive into racial dynamics, but they're trying. I think some people probably thought the exploration of that was kind of shallow in the first season, which I do understand, but they really are expounding upon that, and I'm really interested to see how that continues on from here, because already in this first episode it was oh, we're kind of going there. And I wasn't expecting it, but I appreciate the fact that they're willing to just actually deal with the reality. Yes, this is still fantasy, but just looking at what the dynamics of that would look like socially and politically had it actually happened. And I could only imagine what the world would be like if someone said, hey, let's give this a shot. But history is history. But as far as the series, I am really enjoying it thus far. I am locked in, and the casting that they have done for pretty much everybody, but definitely young Charlotte and adult Queen Charlotte, like, oh, and for Lady Danbury, I'm just like, whoa, like, you can't tell me that these women aren't related to each other. Like, I mean, the casting is perfection, I have to say. But outside of that, I am really just excited to see where we go from here. Because if this episode is any indication, this series is going to be such a time. And I'm here for all of it. And as always, please feel free to leave your thoughts down below regarding your thoughts on this episode and my recap in general. So, once again, this is D, Movieman, signing off, and I'll see you at the movies.